Okay, today we're going to be looking at the volume of 3D figures, which makes sense. Volume is three-dimensional. There's a great video here if you click on the link that kind of shows you where the volume formula for a cone and a sphere come from and how it kind of relates to a cylinder. So feel free to do that and watch some notes. I'll go ahead and just move on to this part. Okay, so as we look at a rectangular prism, the shape of the base is a rectangle. And the area formula for the base is your length times the width, right? Or I could abbreviate that with just L times W. So if we're talking about the volume formula, our volume is going to be the base times the height. And our base, if it's helpful, is length times width. So it's length times width times height. So as we look at the example over here, to find the volume, you'd have 2 times 3 times 11.4. As you multiply all those three together, you end up with 68.4. And be aware here, these will always be units cubed, because volume, you're multiplying three things. Okay, as we look at a cylinder, the base has a shape of a circle. So the area formula for the base, the area of a circle, is pi r squared. So your volume is the area of the base times your height, which ends up being pi r squared times h. In this case, you're going to have to be a little careful. So over here, when we do volume, you'd have pi times your radius, which is actually 2, right? Half of that diameter, 4 squared times 10.5. As you multiply those things together, you end up with 2 squared times 10.5. I could either call this 42 pi, if I want to be exact, or if I actually times that by pi, I end up with approximately 131.95. Okay, a cone, once again, the shape of the base is a circle. So the area formula for the base is pi r squared. So your volume formula this time, it's a little bit different than the cylinder. It actually ends up being 1/3 of the volume of the cylinder. So 1/3 your base times height. So in this case, your base is the circle, so 1/3 pi r squared times height. So in this case, your volume would be 1/3 pi 8 squared times 15. You'll notice I gave you the 17 as well, but the height really is this length here, which is 15. And 17 is the slant height, so that can help you if you're calculating surface area, but we didn't do that. Okay, as we multiply the 1/3 times 8 squared times 15, we end up with 320 pi. We want it exact, or if I do a decimal approximation, I get approximately 1005.31. Okay, last but not least, the sphere doesn't have a base, right? But the volume formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. So in this case, we'd have our volume is 4/3 pi and then 10 cubed. 10 cubed is 1,000, so we basically have 4,000 thirds pi, which is approximately, if I multiply that times pi, I'm actually going to write it below here, sorry, 4,188.79. Okay, so those are the formulas we're going to use today. We're going to just get some more practice on the back, so go ahead and turn it over. Find the volume of the following objects. So this first one you recognize as a rectangle. So all we're going to do is do length times width, or the area of the base, which is 12 times 4, times the height of 8. 12 times 4 times 8, we end up with 384. This time we do have units, so we've got inches cubed. Okay, your ice cream cone here is like the cone. So you're going to use the 1/3 pi r, which in this case you got to be a little careful, because if the diameter equals 2, to find r, you're going to have to do 2 divided by 2, so the radius is just 1. So I have 1 squared times the height, which is 6. So we end up with 2 pi, which is approximately 6.28 inches cubed. Okay, last but not least here, I didn't show you this before, but this is just a cube. So you can think about it, we're doing 5.2 times 5.2, that's the area of the base, times the height, which is 5.2. Our little shortcut there is 5.2 cubed. So we end up with, so let's make sure that decimal is clear, 140.61 centimeters cubed. Okay, let's go to the next one. A standard basketball has a diameter of 9.5 inches. Find the volume of the ball. Write your answer both in exact and approximate form. So think about a basketball. Basketball has the shape of a sphere, and the diameter is 9.5. So our volume formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. So to find r, we've got to take 9.5 and divide it by 2. So we end up with 4.75 as our radius, and we're going to cube that. So if I go ahead and do exact form, I would have, the fraction is 6,859 over 48 pi, which as a decimal is approximately 142.9, we'll say pi. So if I times that by pi, I end up with 448.92. In this case, this is inches cubed. Okay, the next one, we say find the surface area and volume of a fish tank that is 8 feet long, 5 feet wide, and has a height of 6 feet. Okay, I probably should have told you kind of what shape this is. I think this is I guess it should be like a rectangular fish tank. Okay, why don't we actually change this just a little bit? Sorry, let's make it a cylinder. Just for fun, let's make it a cylinder fish tank. So let's just say we still have our height of 6 feet. We can call it 5 feet wide, but let's just cross off the 8 feet long. So this is going to be like the diameter. Okay, so let's talk about surface area. If I think about the surface area of a cylinder, remember you got the 2 circles and the rectangle in the middle. So the area of that circle will just be pi times 2.5 squared. I'm okay here. Why don't you go ahead and write everything in exact form? Decimal form. So we end up with 19.63. Okay. The height here is 6 feet, and the width is the diameter, which is 5 pi. So 6 times 5 pi is 30 pi. So 30 times pi gives us 94.25. So the area here is going to be 19.63 times 2 plus 94.25. So as we total that all up together, we end up with 133.51. In this case, you'd have feet squared is for area. Okay, to find the volume now, we're going to do pi r, which is 2.5 squared, times the 6 for the height. I think it's actually interesting. I think the volume's easier than the surface area here. So we get 117.81 feet cubed. Okay, let's look at this next question. So the next question says, if the tank shrunk by a factor of a half, what's the new surface area and volume? Okay, So if it had originally, a diameter of 5 feet, we're now going to have, so our little fish tank that we said was a cylinder is going to be, rather than 5 feet, the diameter will now be 2.5. It's going to be half of that. And the height, rather than 6 feet, will be 3 feet. Okay, so now if I do the area of a circle, the circle area, it's going to be pi times 1.25 squared, right? Half of 2.5. So we end up with 4.91. And the rectangle area is going to be 3 times the circumference of that circle is going to be 2.5 pi. So 3 times 2.5 pi gives us 23.56. So the surface area is going to be 4.91 times 2 plus 23.56. So we end up with 33.38 feet squared. If you want to know something kind of cool here, as you look at the ratio between that and our previous answer, the 133.54, that's about 1/4 of it before, and that makes sense because 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. So if you wanted to think about that in terms of volume, you're multiplying 1/2 by 3, so 1/2 times 1/2 times 1/2. So this new volume should be about 1/8 of the original size. So let's see if it is. Pi times 1.25 squared times 3. We end up with 14.73 feet cubed. And if you take the 117.81 divided by that, sure enough, you get 8. It's 8 times as big. All right, you should be all set for your homework.